A Tasmanian fighting force formed during the Second World War was almost entirely captured by the Japanese on the island of Timor. Of 919 men in the 2nd 40th Battalion, 264 lost their lives. Those who survived have harrowing stories. 70 years later, a memorial garden is being created for the veterans and their families. Martin Carter reports.
For decades, these World War II veterans have met regularly over a beer. Doug Jack and Lloyd Harding served together in the Australian Imperial Force's only all-Tasmanian battalion, the 2nd 40th. They're survivors of some of the worst conditions endured by Australian prisoners of war.
In bed at night, not every night, but something will come up and then you start dreaming you're in the camping shed and things like that, and it's so realistic that you wake up in the morning, get over the shakes.
Some of their fellow soldiers have similar regular get-togethers in Launceston. Most are in their early 90s. Even so, they don't miss much.
You're worse than George. Yeah, baby, you can remember it, isn't it? Yeah. He don't remember it. I don't remember that, mate.
The initial bonds were formed in 1941. The men were stationed at Kapang on the island of Timor, but it was to be a short-lived posting.
The 2nd 40th has been almost totally forgotten, bar the honour boards that we see at the Glenorchy RSL here and at the Launceston RSL in the foyer.
Darwin was bombed by the Japanese forces in February 1942. The very same day, 5,000 Japanese paratroopers invaded Timor. The 2nd 40th was hopelessly outnumbered, and 4 days later most of the soldiers became prisoners of war.
Well, it's hard to say, but it was bloody brutal. That's just all it was.
They were sent to war camps all over Asia. Some spent time in Changi and on the notorious Burma Railway.
And in the tropics, your clothes with the perspiration and that lasts no time. And up in Burma, all we wore was G-strings, were made out of anything we could find.
They even bashed one of our chaps to death in front of us one day in the camp I was in, cycle camp, because he did some minor infringement of their rules, which sometimes we didn't understand.
One of their favourite things, to stand you there with a rock over your head, probably for half an hour for some simple little thing you did.
And what happens if you dropped it?
If you dropped them, you got a good boot or somewhere, or a smack with a gun and pick it up again and do it again.
While there, Ted Sweetman developed tropical ulcers on his legs and did all he could to relieve the pain.
I couldn't swim, but I'd go out in the water. And I reckon the only thing that saved my legs in the salt water. A lot of blokes there used to be a Dutchman there, used to scoop the stuff out with a spoon. You'd hear blokes screaming all over the camp, you know.
That was nuts.
I don't have enough guts to go up to him.
After the Burma Railway, some of the fittest men were taken to Japan to work in factories, mines and refineries. Fred Brett was just 16 when he enlisted. He still remembers being punished for trivial transgressions.
And they used to call him the Black Bomber, this guard, and he straight into me. And the only thought in my mind was, we used to say, don't go down. Because if you went down, you got the boot. So they were bloody hard men.
Despite the conditions, one thing they all maintained was a sense of humour.
Lined them up ready to get a slap across the face. And the big tall fella in front of the queue, he was about to get his whack, and in just a moment he said, and took out his false teeth. He said, have a go now, son.
This Japanese girl, I don't know what it meant, we used to say, Ijuarimasen car. And I used to say to the boys, listen, she said, you can't get on this bloody car. That's what it sounded like. Yeah.
The battalion left for the Second World War from King's Wharf in Launceston. Not far away, at King's Park, there'll soon be a memorial garden to honour the men's wartime contribution and to enable some reflection on the suffering they endured.
The garden is in some way for the families to go, relatives, wives, the children particularly, to understand a bit more about where their parents have been and the pressures they've had to endure from 1945 after the war.
Rod Stone's father was a member of the 2nd 40th.
I'm more in awe of my father now that he's gone and has been since 78, just through what's been spoken, than in fact when he was alive. And I love my dad. I love my dad's memory. I love those old fellows. And everything they've been through, when they loosen up a little and take you into their trust, you wouldn't believe it.
To me it means a hell of a lot. We've had nothing. You know, there's very few of us left now, and I think it's something wonderful, and we hope to get something going down here and do the same down here.
I can tell you as a former serving member of the 1240th Battalion and someone that has served in Timor, it's quite significant that there's an enduring memorial to the contribution of these men, 200 odd that didn't come home.
Fred Brett hopes it serves as a reminder to future generations of just how awful conditions were. Why do you think it's important that they know?
Well, to know what we went through, what we really went through.
And when you're in your 90s, that recognition is more important than ever. Just last month, another veteran, Lloyd Spencer, passed away. Then his wife Joyce died within a week. Of more than 900 men, today there's just 14 survivors.
Age shall not weary them, or the years condemn. The going down of the sun, and in the morning we will remember them, lest we forget.
Lest we forget.